The warning alarm started blaring across the Galactic Consual assembly station. Exactly 3 minutes before the human ship arrived, Consul Prime Vixathera watched her instrument panels with growing confusion as every sensor in the docking bay began displaying impossible readings. This cannot be correct, she said, her crystalline body shimmering with agitation. Her species had been monitoring space traffic for thousands of years. Nothing surprised them anymore. Until today. Trade Director Colmuth crossed all 4 of his arms and leaned closer to the viewing screen. Maybe their ship is damaged. Those energy signatures make no sense. It's not damaged. Military observer Grenold, his reptilian features tense. I've seen damaged ships. This is something else entirely. The human vessel appeared on the main screen, and the entire command center fell silent. It didn't look particularly impressive compared to the massive console ships with their elegant curves and glowing power cores. The human ship seemed almost plain, a simple silver cylinder with a few external modules, nothing special, but the readings told a different story. The power signature keeps changing, Vexathura said, her voice barely above a whisper. One moment it shows 0 output, the next moment it spikes to levels that would destroy any known reactor. How is their ship not melting? Perhaps their instruments are interfering with ours, Klemth suggested. No, Vexter said firmly, I've compensated for that. These readings are real. That ship is doing something that violates at least 7 fundamental laws of physics. Gren's hand moved to his weapon instinctively. Should we consider them a threat? They requested peaceful contact, Vexathar reminded him, and they've been following all our docking procedures perfectly, whatever they are. They're not hostile. The human ship glided into the docking bay with impossible smoothness. No thrusters fired, no gravitational displacement. It simply moved as if space itself was politely stepping aside for it. That's not normal, Colmuth said. Unnecessarily. An hour later, Ambassador Chen Wei walked into the Grand Assembly Hall, and every eye in the chamber fixed on her. She was surprisingly small compared to most of the species present. Her brown skin and dark hair seemed almost plain next to the colorful representatives of 47 different worlds, but she walked with confidence, a slight smile on her face. Honored members of the Galactic Council, Chen began, her voice clear and steady, I bring greetings from Earth and humanity. We come in peace, seeking friendship and knowledge. The formal part of the meeting went smoothly. Chen presented Earth's application for membership, shared cultural information, and answered basic questions about human society. Everything was perfectly diplomatic and proper. Then Vixatha asked the question everyone was thinking, Ambassador Chen. We've analyzed your ship's approach. Our instruments detected readings that seem to violate known physics. Can you explain your propulsion system? Chen's smile widened slightly. Of course, we don't use conventional faster than light travel, if that's what you're asking. Then how did you cross interstellar distances? Colt demanded. We use probability tunneling, Chen said, casually, as if she just mentioned taking a bus. Our ship exists in multiple locations simultaneously until we observe it at our destination. It's quite efficient, actually. The chamber erupted into chaos. Representatives shouted questions in dozens of languages. Vexthara's crystalline body flashed through colors that indicated severe distress in our species. That's impossible, someone shouted. Nothing can exist in multiple locations at once. Another voice added. Chen waited patiently for the noise to die down. With respect, it's clearly not impossible. We do it regularly, has for about 80 years now. Gren stood up, his massive form commanding attention. Ambassador, are you claiming that humans have mastered quantum superposition at a macro scale? Mastered is a strong word, Chen said, but yes, we use it. Is that unusual? Unusual, Vexithar's voice cracked. It's theoretically impossible. The energy required to maintain quantum coherence in anything larger than a few atoms would exceed the output of an entire star. Chen tilted her head slightly. Our reactor runs pretty hot, but it's manageable. We have good cooling systems. Yet how hot? Vexithara asked, though part of her didn't want to know. About 30 million degrees Kelvin at the core, Chen said, give or take. The silence that followed was absolute. Every species present knew that temperature. It was the temperature of a star's core. No known material could contain such heat. No known reactor could produce it safely. What materials do you use for containment? Filth asked weakly. Oh, we don't contain it exactly, Chen explained. We use a magnetic field that exists in 11 dimensions. The heat can't escape because from the reactor's perspective, there's nowhere to escape. To call meth made a choking sound. 11 dimensions. We can barely manipulate 3, 4 if you count time. Really? Chen looked genuinely surprised. I thought dimensional manipulation was pretty standard. We've had it since the 2070s. Over the next hour, Chen answered questions, and each answer made the situation worse. Humans had technology that casually violated laws the entire Galactic Consual considered absolute. They had computers that thought faster than light. They had materials that shouldn't exist. They had medical technology that could rebuild a body from almost nothing, and Chen described all of it with the same casual tone someone might use to discuss a coffee maker. Ambassador Chen, Exithara said. Finally, how did humanity develop these technologies? Did you discover ancient artifacts? Did another species teach you? No, we figured it out ourselves, Chen said, through experimentation and research. We call it the scientific method. You know, form a hypothesis, test it, analyze the results, repeat until you understand something. We know the scientific method, Colmeth said, sounding offended. Every species here uses it. Oh good, Chen said brightly. Then you'll understand our research papers. I've brought copies of everything, thousands of studies, all peer-reviewed and documented. Vexera felt something close to fear. If humans could do all this, what couldn't they do? And they were offering to share it freely. Why, she asked. Why share such powerful technology with strangers? Chen looked confused by the question. Because that's how science works. We share knowledge. We learn together. We all advance. Why would we keep it secret? The assembly session ended shortly after. The council members needed time to think, to analyze, to understand what they just learned. As Chen left the chamber, Grant approached Vexithara. We need to send a team to Earth, he said quietly. We need to see this for ourselves, agreed, Vexithara said, and we need to understand how they did this. Because if their technology is real, then everything we know about the universe is wrong, Gren finished. Vexithara watched the human ambassador disappear down the corridor still, smiling that friendly smile. Behind that smile was a species that had somehow broken reality itself and didn't even seem to realize how impossible it all was. The console voted that evening. The decision was unanimous. A scientific expedition would travel to Earth. Immediately, they had to know the truth. They had to understand how humans had learned to cheat the universe. The journey to Earth's solar system took 3 weeks using standard console faster than light drives. Vexthara spent most of that time reviewing the research papers Ambassador Chen had provided. Each page made her more confused. This is madness, she muttered, reading a paper titled Practical Applications of Quantum Tunneling in Everyday Manufacturing. Kalmuth looked up from his own stack of papers. What did you find? According to this study, humans use quantum mechanics to build household furniture, Vexra said. They describe it as basic 3D printing technology available in most homes. That's impossible. They have photographs and videos and testimonials from millions of users. Vexathar set the paper down. I don't understand how their entire civilization hasn't collapsed into a quantum singularity. Gren entered the research cabin, his expression grim. We're approaching the Sol system. You should come to the bridge. The moment their ship crossed into human space, every instrument went haywire. Again, sensors showing gravitational anomalies throughout the system, the pilot announced, but they don't match any natural phenomena. Vexathara studied the readings. Those aren't anomalies. Those are artificial structures. Humans have built stations around every planet, moon, and major asteroid in their system. How many people do they have? Colt asked. According to their census, about 15 billion in the Salt system alone. Vexathar said. Another 3 billion in colony systems, 18 billion. Gren sounded shocked. How do they feed them all? Transport them, manage the logistics. That's what we're here to find out, Vexathara said. A human voice crackled over the communication system console. Vessel, this is Earth Traffic Control. Welcome to Sol. We have you on approach. Vector 7, Captain Marcus Rivera will be your military escort. Dr. Sarah Kim will be your scientific liaison. Please follow the guidance beacon to station Unity. The guidance beacon appeared on their sensors, and what happened next made Vexathara's entire body flash with shock. Their ship began moving without their pilot touching any controls. They're moving us. Gren's hand went to his weapon. How? They've established a harmonic field around our vessel, the pilot reported, voice shaking. It's gently pulling us along the designated path. I've never seen technology like this. A new ship appeared alongside them, sleek and silver, about half their size. A human face appeared on the communication screen. Captain Rivera. Presumably, he had dark hair, darker skin, and a friendly smile that somehow made Vexathara more nervous. Good to meet you in person, so to speak, Rivera said. Don't worry about the guidance system. It's standard procedure for new visitors. We've had a few accidents with species not familiar with our traffic patterns. This way everyone stays safe. You're controlling our ship, Grant said, not quite making it a question, only the trajectory. Rivera assured him. All your internal systems are completely yours. Think of it like a helpful current pulling you to shore. You can fight it if you want, but why work harder than you need to? Station Unity was enormous, 10 times the size of the console. Assembly station, it hung in space, between Earth and its moon like a glittering city. Ships of all sizes moved around it in precise patterns, never colliding, always flowing smoothly. Dr. Sarah Kim met them at the docking port. She was young, probably barely an adult by human standards, with bright eyes and an excited smile. "This is so exciting," she said, shaking hands with each of them in the human custom. "We've never had console scientists visit before. I've prepared full demonstrations of everything you wanted to see." "Everything?" Vexathara asked cautiously. "Well, everything that's not classified for security reasons," Kim said, "but that's only about 5% of our technology. The rest is open source, available to anyone who wants to learn." She led them to a laboratory that looked surprisingly ordinary. Workbenches, computers, equipment that seemed normal until Vexatha started examining it more closely. "This computer," she said slowly, "it's showing calculations happening faster than light speed allows." "Oh, that's because it's not really calculating in our dimension," Kim explained. "The processing happens in quantum space, where time is more flexible. The computer just retrieves the results, makes it super fast." "Super fast," Colmuth repeated weakly. "You've created a device that processes information outside of normal time." "I mean, when you put it that way, it sounds impressive," Kim said, laughing. "But it's just standard quantum computing. Everyone has one. Kids use them for homework." Gren picked up what looked like a simple tool. "What's this?" "Oh, careful with that," Kim said quickly. "That's a molecular assembler. It can rearrange matter at the atomic level. Great for repairs, but if you point it at something living, it could get messy." Gren set it down very carefully. The demonstrations continued for hours, each one more impossible than the last. Kim showed them a medical scanner that could map a person's entire body down to individual cells in seconds. She showed them materials that changed properties based on what you needed. She showed them a reactor the size of a small box that produced enough power to run the entire laboratory. "How are you not dead?" Vexthera finally asked. "These technologies should produce radiation, heat, quantum decay. Station should be a death trap." Kim looked puzzled. "We have shielding and safety protocols. I mean, accidents happen sometimes, but that's why we have the medical technology. We can fix most injuries now." "Most injuries?" Gren asked. "We haven't quite figured out how to reverse death yet," Kim admitted, "but we can prevent almost everything else. Brain damage, organ failure, genetic disorders. We can even slow aging. I have grandparents who are over 150 years old and still healthy." Vexathara felt her legs become unstable. She sat down on the nearest chair. "This is impossible, all of it. The energy requirements alone should exceed your civilization's total capacity." "Well, that's why we developed zero-point energy extraction," Kim said. "We pull energy directly from quantum vacuum fluctuations. There's essentially unlimited energy available if you know how to tap it safely." "Safely?" Colmuth's voice rose. "You're extracting energy from the quantum vacuum that could destabilize space-time itself." "I mean, it could if you do it wrong," Kim agreed. "That's why we have regulations and training. You need a license to operate the big extractors. The small ones are pretty safe, though. I have one in my apartment." She led them To a manufacturing facility next, robots. Moved with fluid grace, assembling. Complex devices, but they weren't normal. Robots. Are those machines thinking? Bixathura asked, sort of. Kim said, they're quantum-entangled AI systems. Not really conscious, but they can process problems. Creatively, we link them together so they can share information. Instantaneously, instantaneous communication across distance. Gren said, that's supposed to be impossible. Quantum entanglement makes it possible. Kim explained, Einstein called it spooky. Action at a distance, we call it really convenient for coordination. They watched as the robots assembled. Complex device from raw materials in minutes, perfect precision, no waste. Incredible speed, 98% efficiency. Kim said proudly, we're still working on getting those last 2%. Vexathara thought about the console's best manufacturing, which operated at perhaps 40% efficiency. Humans had more than doubled that and were disappointed it wasn't perfect. The final demonstration nearly broke Vexathar's mind completely. Kim took them to an observation room overlooking Earth. That's your home world, Vexathara said. It looks pristine. Where are your industrial centers? Mostly underground or in orbital facilities, Kim said. We cleaned up the surface about 50 years ago, restored the ecosystems. Now we mostly use Earth for living, not manufacturing. You restored an entire planet's ecosystem. Well, yeah, it was getting pretty messed up, so we fixed it. Took a few decades, but it was worth it. As they prepared to leave, Bixthara finally asked the question that had been growing in her mind all day. Dr. Kim, your technology doesn't just break the laws of physics. We know it seems to rewrite them. How is this possible? Kim thought for a moment. I think maybe you're thinking about physics wrong, like you see laws as things that can't be broken. We see them more as guidelines, strong suggestions. The universe is way more flexible than most people think. The universe is not flexible, Vexatha said firmly. Physical laws are absolute. Kim smiled. Are they though? Because we've been bending them for nearly a century now, and reality hasn't collapsed yet. That night aboard their ship, the three console representatives sat in silence. They don't understand how impossible they are, Kalmuth finally said. Worse, Giarenth added, they don't care. Vexathara stared at the data sheet. Collected, the scans, the readings, the documentation. All of it proved that humans were doing the impossible, and they acted like it was normal. We need to report this to the console immediately, she said. Because I think I know why human technology works when it shouldn't, and if I'm right, it changes everything we know about the universe. What? The emergency session of the Galactic Consual began with Vexathara standing before representatives of 47 worlds. Her crystalline body pulsed with colors that indicated extreme stress. Behind her, holographic displays showed the data from Earth. Honored members, she began. What I am about to tell you will sound impossible, but I have verified it multiple times. The readings are accurate. She activated the first display. It showed the Sol system from a distance overlaid with quantum field measurements. The human star system exists within a quantum fluctuation zone. Space itself is unstable there in ways we've never encountered before. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Representative Thalax, whose species had studied physics for 10,000 years, stood up. That's absurd. Such zones would collapse. Instantly, they're mathematically possible but physically unstable. Normally, yes, Vexthera agreed, but Soul Zone has been stable for billions of years and it's affected everything in that system, including the species that evolved there. She changed the display to show human DNA scans. Human genetic code contains quantum markers. Their cellular structure operates partially in quantum superposition. They are quite literally beings that exist in multiple states simultaneously. The chamber erupted, shouts of disbelief, demands for proof, accusations of fraud. Vexthera waited for order to be restored. I didn't believe it either, she said quietly, but the evidence is overwhelming. Humans evolved in an environment where quantum uncertainty is normal, where probability is flexible, where the impossible is merely improbable. Coleman stood to add his testimony. Their technology doesn't break physical laws, it negotiates with them. Humans instinctively understand probability manipulation because they live it every moment of their existence. Show us the reactor data, someone called out. Vexthera displayed the scans of a human reactor core. The readings made several representatives gasp. 30 million degrees, she said, but notice the containment field. It doesn't block the heat through force, it simply makes the heat exist in a state where it can't escape. The reactor is simultaneously hot and cold depending on observation. That violates thermodynamics. Knack shouted. No, Vexthera said it redefines them. Humans don't think in terms of heat transfer, they think in terms of probability states. Will heat escape? Probably not, therefore it doesn't. She showed more data. Communication systems, the computers, the manufacturing technology, each one displayed the same pattern. Humans weren't forcing reality to obey them. They were convincing reality that their desired outcome was the most likely probability. Gren presented the military analysis. Their weapons are equally disturbing. They don't destroy matter through energy, they change the probability of matter existing. A target doesn't explode, it simply ceases to have ever been there. Can we defend against such weapons? Military coordinator Veska asked. Only if we learn to manipulate probability ourselves, Gren said. Brings us to the critical question. Ambassador Chen, who had been sitting quietly in the observer section, was invited to speak. Consul must decide, Chen said, walking to the center of the chamber. Do you want to learn? Because we're willing to teach, but I need to be honest with you about something. She paused, making sure everyone was listening. Your species evolved in stable quantum environments. Your brains are wired to see physical laws as absolute, unchanging. That makes you excellent at engineering within those laws, but it also limits you, limits us. How? Someone asked. You can't imagine the impossible, Chen said simply. When you see something that violates known physics, your mind rejects it. You try to force it into familiar frameworks. That's why you can't use our technology safely. Vexthera nodded. She's correct. I've analyzed the theoretical foundation of human science. It requires accepting that you don't know everything, that reality is more flexible than you believe. For most species here, that's psychologically difficult. Are you saying we're too rigid to learn? Sounded offended. I'm saying you're different, Chen replied. Not worse, different. You're rigid. Thinking has let you build a stable civilization across hundreds of worlds. That's impressive, but it also means you need to learn a new way of thinking if you want to use probability-based technology. The debate that followed lasted for hours. Conservative members argued that humanity should be quarantined. Their technology was too dangerous, too destabilizing. If it spread through the console, it could destroy the carefully balanced civilization they'd built. Progressive members countered that humanity offered solutions to problems that had plagued them for millennia: energy shortages, resource limitations, communication delays. Humans had solved all of it. What do you want from us, Console Prime? Vexithara finally asked Chen directly. Full membership in the console, Chen said. Equal status with every other species, and we want to share our knowledge freely like we do among ourselves, and in return, access to your knowledge, Chen said. Your perspective, you see the universe differently than we do. That's valuable. We can learn from each other. What if we vote to quarantine your species? Asked Representative Morthal, leader of the conservative faction. Chen's smile didn't waver. Then you'll have made a choice. We'll respect it, but I should mention something. She tapped a device on her wrist. A display appeared showing computer network traffic. For the last 3 years, human internet has been accessible to anyone with basic hacking skills. It's completely open. We don't believe in keeping knowledge locked away. The chamber went silent. Are you saying, Vexthor said slowly, that your entire technological database is already available to the galaxy? Yes, Chen said. We publish everything, open source. We call it anyone who wants to learn can access our research papers, our design documents, our instruction videos. It's all there. How many people have accessed it? Kolymuth asked. According to our logs, about 40 million individuals across console space, Chen said. Most just browsing out of curiosity, but several thousand have downloaded significant amounts of technical data. Chaos erupted again. Information was already out there. Quarantine was pointless. Why didn't you tell us this earlier? Freshka demanded. You didn't ask, Chen said simply. We're not hiding anything. That's kind of the point. The vote, when it finally came, was close. 25 in favor of human membership, 22 against. It was enough. Humanity is granted provisional membership, Vexithara announced, but with restrictions. You may not share certain advanced technologies until we've established proper safety protocols. Which technologies? Shannon asked. Vexithara listed them: weapon systems, reality manipulation devices, consciousness transfer technology, temporal mechanics. Chen listened politely, then shook her head. I'm sorry, but we can't agree to that. What? We don't restrict knowledge, Chen said. That's a fundamental human principle. We can't compromise on it. Either you accept us as full members with no restrictions, or we'll remain independent. You're refusing membership. Then couldn't believe it. I'm refusing conditional membership, Chen corrected. We're happy to be equals. We won't be children who need supervision. The vote was called again, this time with humanity's ultimatum clear. The decision was different. 30 votes in favor, 17 against. Humanity was granted full unrestricted membership. As the session ended, Vexithara approached Chen privately. You knew it would go this way, she said. I hoped, Chen admitted. Humans are optimistic by nature. I'm terrified Vexathara confessed, your technology in the wrong hands could destroy everything, so could fire, Chen said, or nuclear energy, or genetic engineering. Every tool is dangerous if misused, but the answer isn't to hide knowledge, it's to teach responsibility. What if someone uses your technology to build weapons? Then we'll deal with it, Chen said. Calmly, together, that's what the console is for, right? Mutual protection and support. Vexathara wanted to argue, but she'd seen human society. Their open sharing of knowledge had made them strong, not weak. Their acceptance of uncertainty had made them adaptable, not chaotic. Maybe she thought they were right. Maybe the console had been too rigid, too afraid of change. Teach us, she said suddenly, not the technology, the thinking. Help us understand how you see the universe. Chen's smile widened. That's exactly what we were hoping you'd ask. 3 days later, the first announcement went out across console space. Humanity was officially a full member, and they were offering education programs to any species that wanted to learn. The response was overwhelming. Millions of applications flooded in. Within hours, scientists, engineers, philosophers, artists, everyone wanted to understand how humans thought. In her private quarters, Vexathara reviewed the applications. One name caught her attention, her daughter Lexthara, young scientist with brilliant potential. She approved the application immediately. Perhaps she thought the next generation would bridge the gap between rigid laws and flexible probability, between certainty and possibility. Perhaps together humans and the console would discover truths neither could have found alone. The universe, it seemed, was about to get much more interesting. The explosion occurred 3 months after humanity joined the Galactic Consual research station Gamma 7, operated by the Thal species, simply ceased to exist in a flash of impossible light. Vexathara watched the disaster footage with horror. One moment the station was there, the next it wasn't. In its place was something that made her instrument scream, a sphere of twisted space that shouldn't exist. What were they working on? Console Prime Thnax asked, his voice shaking. According to their last transmission, Gren reported, they were attempting to replicate a human zero-point energy reactor. The silence in the emergency command center was thick with dread. Send rescue teams, Vexra ordered, and get me Ambassador Chen now. Chen arrived within the hour, her expression grim as she reviewed the data. They tried to force the quantum field into stability, she said quietly. That's not how it works. You can't command probability, you have to guide it. Can you fix this? Thnax asked. Maybe, Chen said, but I need authorization to bring in human engineers. This requires equipment you don't have. The authorization came quickly. Nobody wanted a quantum anomaly growing in the middle of console space. The human team arrived on a small ship that made Vexathara's sensors complain. Again, leading them was engineer Marcus Rodriguez, a man with tired eyes and steady hands. All right, he said, studying the anomaly. This is bad, but not catastrophic yet. The quantum field is trying to collapse into a stable state, but your colleague's equipment is forcing it to remain unstable. Can you stabilize it? Vexthar asked. No, Rodriguez said. I'm going to convince it to stabilize itself. Different approach. He and his team deployed strange devices around the anomaly. They didn't emit energy or force fields. They just hummed quietly, almost musically. What are those doing? Gren asked, singing to the quantum field. Rodriguez said, not joking. Quantum mechanics responds to observation and intention. We're essentially asking nicely for the field to calm down. You're asking it. Knack sounded incredulous. Physics isn't your enemy, Rodriguez explained while working. It's more like a dance partner. You lead, it follows, but you have to move together. Your team tried to force it into a box that never works. Over the next 6 hours, the anomaly slowly shrank. The twisted space unwound itself. By the time Rodriguez powered down his devices, the area was clear. Crisis averted, he said, wiping his forehead. But you need to stop trying to build our reactors. At least 3 other species have reported similar problems. Smaller scale, thankfully. Vexith Thura felt a chill run through her crystalline body. This is going to keep happening, isn't it? Until people learn the right way to think about this stuff. Yeah, Rodriguez admitted. That's why we offered education programs. But the reactor incident wasn't the only crisis. Reports flooded in from across console space. Species trying to replicate human technology were creating disasters. Medical device that accidentally aged its test subject by 50 years. Communication system that somehow connected to people's thoughts. Manufacturing unit that started creating random matter. And then came the worst news. The Vil Dominion has acquired human technology, Gren reported during an emergency session. Intelligence confirms they've built weapons based on human designs. The Vrail Dominion had been the console's enemy for generations, a militaristic empire that believed in conquest and domination. They'd been held at bay by superior console technology and numbers. Now they had access to weapons that could rewrite reality. How did they get our designs? Chen demanded. One of your scientists, Vixatha said quietly. Dr. Harold Yates. He was approached by Veral agents. They offered him money and resources. He thought they wanted to use the technology for peaceful purposes. Chen's face went pale. What did he give them? Everything, Gren said. Weapon, schematics, power system, shield technology. The Val paid well. That fool, Chen whispered. He didn't understand. He couldn't understand. Understand what? Thalex asked. Human technology requires human thinking, Chen explained. If the Val tried to use it with their rigid domination-focused mindset, the results will be unstable, dangerous. Dangerous how? Freshka asked. Chen brought up a simulation. Our weapons work because we accept uncertainty. We don't force matter to cease existing. We suggest that non-existence is more probable. It's gentle, controlled, but if you try to force it, the simulation showed a weapon firing instead of cleanly removing the target. Space itself began to unravel. The destruction spread in unpredictable patterns. It becomes a quantum cancer, Chen finished, eating through reality itself. 2 days later, the first reports of vile attacks came in. They'd struck 3 console border stations simultaneously. The weapons worked after a fashion. The stations were destroyed, but so was everything within a 100,000 km. Ships, asteroids, even empty space showed signs of quantum decay. They're killing everything, Vixthara said, watching the footage. Not just their targets. Everything. More attacks followed. The VL pushed deep into console territory. Their unstable weapons clearing paths of destruction. Nothing could stand against them. Console shields designed to stop. Conventional weapons were useless against technology that simply decided. Their ships probably weren't there anymore. The console fleet fell back. Taking heavy losses, panic spread. Through member worlds, we need human help. Freshka finally admitted, our weapons can't touch them, our shields can't protect us. If this continues, the VA will destroy everything. All eyes turned to Chen. She stood before the console, her usual smile gone. The humans will help, she said, but you need to understand what you're asking. If we deploy our military technology, really deploy it, the universe will see what we're capable of. There's no going back. From that, we're already seeing it. Dolnik said through the vowels. Corrupted version, no, Chen said firmly. You're seeing what happens when someone tries to use our technology without understanding it. If you want to see what we can really do when we understand it perfectly, she paused, it will be frightening even to us. Can you stop the V? Vexler asked. Yes, will you? Chen looked around the chamber. Are you sure? Once we deploy, there's no pretending. Humans are just another species. Everyone will know what we are. They already know, Gren said. They've always known. We've just been pretending. Otherwise, what do you require? Vexler asked. Full tactical command. Chen said, my military needs to operate without interference, and you need to accept that we'll do things that seem impossible. Will you destroy the veil? Someone asked. No, Chen said, we'll stop them. There's a difference. Destruction is easy. We're going to do something harder. We're going to make them understand they made a mistake. The authorization was given. Within hours, human warships began arriving at the front lines. They weren't large or impressive looking, just sleek silver vessels that made sensors malfunction. Captain Rivera contacted Gren's flagship. We're in position. Beginning probability field deployment. What does that mean? Gren asked. You'll see, Rivera said, and so will the VA. The Val fleet, emboldened by their stolen technology, pushed forward for another attack. 50 warships, each armed with unstable reality warping weapons. They never got to fire. Human ships released something that Gren's sensors couldn't properly identify. It looked like light, but it moved wrong. Bent wrong existed. Wrong when it reached the Val fleet. The enemy ship simply stopped, frozen in space, still there but unable to move or act. What did you do? Gren asked in awe. We changed the probability of them being able to move, Rivera explained. Right now, from their perspective, movement is so unlikely that it might as well be impossible. They're not hurt, just stuck. For how long? As long as we maintain the field. Hours, days, years. However long you need. But the demonstration wasn't over. More Val ships appeared, trying to rescue their frozen fleet. Human ships responded with weapons that Gren's brain refused to properly process. Beams of probability that made Vil ships forget they had shields, missiles that convinced enemy reactors they weren't actually producing power, drones that existed in multiple locations simultaneously, making them impossible to target. The battle, if it could be called that, lasted 17 minutes. By the end, 200 Val warships were either frozen in space or drifting powerless. Not destroyed, just completely neutralized. We're detecting a transmission from the Vrail home world, Gren's communications officer reported. They're requesting negotiations. Chen smiled slightly. See, understanding Achieved, now comes the hard part. What's the hard part? Wexler asked. Teaching them not to make the same mistake again, Chen said, and making sure you all don't either. This technology exists now. The question is, what do we do with it in a detention cell on Station Unity? Dr. Harold Yates sat with his head in his hands, finally understanding the magnitude of what he'd done. He'd given godlike power to a species that saw the universe as something to be conquered, and humanity had just shown everyone what godlike power looked like when wielded correctly. 6 months after the vow conflict ended, Professor Aidan Okonkwo stood before his first class of alien students at the Human Quantum Academy on Station Unity. 30 beings from 20 different species sat in the lecture hall watching him with expressions ranging from curiosity to fear. Welcome, he said with a warm smile. I know what you're thinking. You're wondering if you can really learn to do what humans do, if your minds can grasp concepts that seem to violate everything you know. A crystalline student in the front row raised a translucent hand. Lexara, daughter of Consul Prime Vexithera, is it possible for us, she asked? Our brains aren't wired like yours, neither was mine. Once, Okonkwo said, I'm 57 years old. I learned quantum probability manipulation when I was 35 after growing up thinking physics was rigid and absolute. If I can learn, anyone can. He activated a display showing a simple quantum particle. Let me ask you something. Where is this particle in multiple locations until observed? Atho. Student answered immediately, correct. According to quantum mechanics, Okonkwo said. Now here's the human question. Why does observation collapse the wave function? Silence. The answer is we don't know, Okono said, and more importantly, we stopped trying to know. We accepted that reality is weird and worked with it instead of against it. He held up a small device. This is a basic probability manipulator, standard human tool. It changes the likelihood of outcomes. How does it work? More silence. Nobody knows, Okono admitted cheerfully. We discovered that certain quantum field configurations make some outcomes more likely, so we use those configurations. We don't understand the deep theory, we just know it works. That's not science, a student protested. Science requires understanding. Science requires results, Okono corrected gently. Understanding comes later. Sometimes much later. Humans used fire for thousands of years before we understood combustion chemistry. We're using quantum probability the same way. And someday, maybe one of you will figure out the theory we're missing. Over the following weeks, Okonkwo taught them not formulas or equations, but a way of thinking. He taught them to question assumptions, to accept uncertainty, to see physical laws as patterns rather than rules. It was slow, frustrating work. Centuries of rigid thinking didn't change overnight. Then came the breakthrough. Lexthera had been working on building a basic probability influence power cell for days. Every attempt had failed. The quantum field refused to stabilize. I don't understand, she said, frustrated. I'm following the instructions. Exactly. Okono sat beside her. That's your problem. You're following instructions. You're trying to control the field. Isn't that the point? No, Okono said. The point is to cooperate with it. Here. Try something. Stop thinking about what the field should do. Think about what it wants to do. It's a quantum field. It Doesn't want anything, doesn't it? Oh. Conquo asked. Quantum systems seek stable states, they prefer certain configurations. What if instead of forcing your configuration, you found one the field already likes? Lexithara stared at her equipment, then slowly she stopped trying to impose her will on the quantum field. Instead, she observed what patterns emerged naturally and gently encouraged them. The power cell flickered, then stabilized. Energy readings showed clean, consistent output. I did it, she whispered. I actually did it. No, Akinquo said with a smile. You and the quantum field did it together. News of the breakthrough spread quickly. If one alien student could learn, others could too. Applications to the academy tripled, but not everyone was happy about humanity's growing influence on the Vrail home world. Warlord Threxar sat in a detention facility, awaiting trial for war crimes. The Vil government had surrendered after seeing what human technology could really do. Their empire had collapsed in weeks. Thraxar had requested to speak with Ambassador Chen. She agreed, curious about what he wanted. You humiliated us, he said. When she arrived, his reptilian features were twisted with anger and something else. Confusion. We stopped you, Chen corrected. There's a difference. Why? Threxar asked. You could have destroyed us completely. Your weapons could have erased our entire species from existence. Why didn't you? Chen sat down across from him. Because destruction is easy. It's the lazy option. We wanted you to learn something instead. Learn what? That you were using tools you didn't understand. Chen said the technology Dr. the Yates gave you was never going to work properly for you. Your entire military philosophy is based on domination, on forcing others to submit. That mindset is incompatible with probability-based technology. I don't understand, Threxar admitted. I know, Chen said gently. That's exactly the lesson. You tried to command reality, but reality doesn't take commands. It responds to cooperation, to gentle persuasion, to working with it instead of against it. This is weakness, Threxar said automatically, though his voice lacked conviction. Is it? Chen asked. We defeated your entire fleet without destroying a single ship. We have technology that can rewrite reality itself. Does that sound weak to you? Threxar was silent for a long moment. What happens to us now? That depends on you, Chen said. The console will decide your personal fate, but your species, they have a choice. They can remain isolated, clinging to old ways, or they can learn like everyone else is learn to be like humans. No, Chen said firmly. Learn to think differently, to question assumptions, to accept uncertainty. The Val are warriors. That's not wrong, but maybe you can be warriors who fight for something other than domination. Warriors who protect instead of conquer. After she left, Threxar sat in his cell, thinking about her words. For the first time in his life, he wasn't certain about anything. Meanwhile, across console space, the paradigm shift continued. Species that had relied on rigid engineering for millennia began experimenting with probability-based approaches, not copying human technology directly, but learning human thinking and applying it to their own methods. TH Engineer developed a new kind of shield that didn't block energy, but convinced energy it didn't want to be there. A merchant species created a communication system that didn't transmit signals, but made receivers believed they'd already received them. Medical team found a way to encourage cells to heal themselves rather than forcing them through chemical intervention. None of it worked quite like human technology, but all of it worked better than what they'd had before. 6 months after the first breakthrough, Vexathara visited the academy to see her daughter's progress. She found Lixarit, a laboratory working alongside a human student on a joint project. What are you building? Vexathar asked. A hybrid drive system, Lexthr explained excitedly. It combines human probability tunneling with tradition console precision engineering. The human part handles the quantum uncertainty, while the console part ensures stable transitions. Does it work? We're about to find out, the human student said. They activated the prototype. For a moment nothing happened, then the device began to hum. Not with the chaotic energy of pure human technology, not with the rigid stability of console engineering, but with something in between, something new. It's stable, Lexathar breathed. It's actually stable, Vexathar felt something shift inside her. This was the future, not human dominance, not console tradition, but both together creating something neither could achieve alone. In Earth's orbit, Ambassador Chen met with the console leadership for a final evaluation of humanity's membership. 6 months ago, we weren't sure if this would work, Nax admitted. Humans are so different from us. Your technology is so far beyond what we knew was possible. And now, Shen asked, now I realize we were asking the wrong question. Vexathara said, we kept asking if you were more advanced than us, but advancement isn't linear. It's not a ladder where someone is higher or lower. It's more like a forest where different trees grow in different directions. Poetic, Chen said with a smile. What I mean is, Vexathar continued, humans aren't more advanced, you're differently advanced. You excel at quantum probability because your environment taught you to think that way. But you struggle with some things that are easy for us: precision manufacturing, long-term planning, social stability. That's true, Chen admitted. We're still working on some of those things, so perhaps, Gren suggested, the real value of the console isn't that we're all the same, it's that we're all different. Each species sees the universe through different eyes. Together we see more than any of us could alone. I couldn't have said it better, Chen agreed. Formal vote came the next day. Humanity's provisional status was removed. They were now full members of the Galactic Council with all rights and responsibilities. But more importantly, the console had changed. The rigid thinking that had dominated for generations was giving way to something more flexible, more open to possibility. 1 year after first contact, a joint console human exploration ship launched into unknown space. The crew was mixed, representing 20 different species. The ship used hybrid technology, combining human quantum manipulation with alien precision engineering. Captain Rivera stood on the bridge alongside Vexathara, who'd accepted the position of chief science officer. Ready for the first jump? Rivera asked.